What's going on, everybody? Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Kieran, and I like to help people using a spiritual perspective. I'm trying out a new camera. I don't know. There's a filter on it, so that's you're dealing with that now, okay? Because I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Technology's not my thing. I don't know how I got into YouTube then because I have no idea what to do. So anyway, let's move past it and let's just get into the topic of the day. And the topic is going to be something that is very important to me, considering I experienced it, and I think a lot of people did as well. And have been, and I want to sort of help people out who might be experiencing this now. And so what this is going to be about is the number one reason why you may or why you can confuse a false twin flame relationship with a true twin flame relationship. Okay, now there's a bunch of other signs. Okay, some maybe you could even argue are more important, but I think that this is the most common and most confusing thing that a lot of people that go through, and was the number one reason that I struggled so long to let go of a false twin flame relationship. Okay, and that reason is signs and synchronicities. Okay, now when we see signs and we see synchronicities, we tend to see that as a good thing, though of course it has negative connotations in our life. If you have an unlucky number and you keep seeing it, you may think that there's something unlucky about to happen, some bad luck. But if you keep seeing, of course, angel numbers 555, when you look at the clock, you're not looking for it, you might think that's good. You're going through some changes. 111, new beginnings. You see 1111, that might be a really great thing for your twin flame relationship, right? And you would think so. And most of the time, honestly, it is. But when it comes to a false twin flame relationship, there's going to be these signs and synchronicities that you hold on to. And yet there's always going to be some nagging feeling as if something's off, right? And so when you do get signs and when you do get these sort of synchronicities, whether or not they're numbers or a special meaning that you see that only you and that other person knows, maybe you see their name all the time, what's really going on, oftentimes, and this is something that we again misconstrue, is that what's really happening is you're getting a sort of feedback loop, right? You are thinking about something and you are attracting it back into your life, right? So an example of that would be you constantly thinking about them and then seeing their name. And of course in your head you go, well, I've seen their name, so they must be my twin flame. They must be this type of relationship. I clearly must be I clearly must be destined to be with them. But that's not necessarily the case, because oftentimes we look at these signs and synchronicities and we go, oh, proof that so-and-so is my twin. But in actuality, what's really happening is these signs are actually saying, no, this is a test, let go. This is not proof that they're your twin flame. This is in fact proof that what you need to do is actually let go. Right? And there's an esoteric sort of explanation to all of this, right? And the reasoning behind this, and of course the core belief system behind even what I'm trying to say to you right now, is it comes down to the 5D and it comes down to the 3D. Now, when it comes to any sort of karmic relationship, but since we're talking about false twins, when it comes to this type of specific relationship, you tend to focus only on the 5D. You tend to focus only on the energy. You tend to focus only on the feeling that you have within the connection, right? And when you're so much in the 5D, and again, that's sort of head in the clouds, not really being grounded, more concerned with the spiritual aspects of your own divinity rather than what's going on and what your life looks like here in this earth plane, right? In the 3D. When you're so concerned about the 5D, you lose sight of what's actually going on around you within your reality, within your grounded 3D reality, right? If you're only focusing on the 5D, those signs are not going to mean that much, because if you're living in that connection, if you're living in that spirituality, you are going to get signs. You're literally being inside of it. You're not being a dual, you're not being part of the 3D and being grounded, but also being the spiritual being. If you're only focusing on the 5D and living throughout that sort of energetic vibrations field, you're going to get that sort of feedback loop all the time. But because you're not grounded in the 3D, how would you ever be able to discern whether or not the signs that you're getting are, of course, authentic and good, or if they are misconstrued, something that you're more or less just attracting into your life, or it's more of a test in order for you to let go, right? A small example of that would be, I'll share a little bit. I always used to believe with my false twin that the word oak was our special little connection, okay? There's reasons for that. I'm not going to get too much into it, but essentially I have a soul name. My soul name is Ash, that being a Celtic tree goddess. Okay, now that has a pretty important meaning to me even throughout my life. Small example, my favorite character always as a child was Pokemon. That guy's name was Ash, in case you're familiar. I've seen it a lot. Ash's nickname is Nin, N-I, or spelt N-U-I-N, pronounced Nin, means peace or heaven. In high school, I was always called Nin by my best friend, way before that I experienced the soul name. And my name's Kieran, of course. People always mispronouncing my name as Kieran Nin, always adding that extra N, which I always thought was strange. And of course, after learning my soul name, it all made sense. But anyway, Oak, I remember reading, was the counterpart to Ash, okay? So I would always see Oak everywhere, okay? And so I was believing that this was a synchronicity, a sign that, in fact, she was my twin flame, right? But she wasn't, okay? Something I know now. But there was always something off about that connection. There was always something that I didn't quite understand, that I couldn't quite make sense of. It was like I would see it, but I would be like, it wouldn't make me feel good. It wouldn't make me necessarily feel like I was on the right track. It was almost something that my mind wanted to believe. And all that time, when I was seeing the word oak, or seeing other synchronicities as well, but again, I'm talking about these types of things. I was seeing oak, 1111, numbers like that, her name everywhere, right? When I was seeing all these synchronicities, I look back now and I look at where I was in my life. I didn't have a job. In fact, when I met her, I quit my job, right? I was starting spiritual practices, spiritual businesses. I was plunging myself into poetry, into artwork, into music, right? I was very much not focused at all on the 3D. I was not looking for friendships. I was not looking for ways to make money even. It just sort of developed like that, I suppose, with tarot and coaching, but I wasn't looking at the 3D and looking how to stay grounded. I wasn't eating the right foods. I wasn't necessarily taking care of myself. I was just lost in the clouds, lost in the connection, lost in the energy. So I would see these synchronicities and signs, and I would sort of let me be blind in a sense, right? Because I wasn't focused, I wasn't grounded in this 3D. Because if I had been like I am now, I would have seen things for what they really are. Right? And this is the number one thing that caused me to not want to let go, because I was still seeing oak. And then eventually I came across some articles. I had some clarity, some epiphanies of my own, and it was a long enough period of time for me to understand that really what was happening within that relationship was it was a false twin relationship, and that I was actually opening me up to all of my core wounds and everything, and that mirroring, of course, being a false twin flame relationship, it mirrors a true one. Otherwise, it would just be called, a strong soulmate-like connection, right? It has to have some similarities to the twin flame relationship to even garner the name at all. But all that aside, I was not focused on what was really going on, because what was really going on was that there was never any emotional connection, always third-party energy, always felt like I was going insane, always felt like that it was always from a place of like I had no self-worth, always these self-worth issues, never felt like I was good enough, the relationship never went anywhere, I felt stagnant, literally having tailbone pain for the better part of a year, okay, which since I've moved from California, where all that happened, I have not since had that, okay, and actually I've discovered who my true twin flame is since then, but that's not what this video is about. So, all those synchronicities and signs aside, the one thing that kept me in that connection was what I'm talking about here. Despite all that other BS that I was dealing with, despite all the clear-cut reality of the situation with the dissonance of between really me and her, the intuition basically inside of myself saying something's not quite right, Kieran. I don't know if what you're doing is actually a good option for you. But I still held on, and I held on to those signs, and I held on to them again because I made the mistake of believing that when you see signs for something, it's some sort of absolute truth that the person belongs in your life. But it isn't, because if they're causing you pain, if something's causing you pain, you will attract it back into your life in order for you to deal with it, right? If you're seeing synchronicities and signs of somebody, like I was with her, and it's bringing up pain, and it's bringing up self-worth issues, and it's always feeling like you're not good enough, and the relationship doesn't make sense, and you feel like very confused, and that you feel insane. It's a good, not 100%, but it's a good chance there's something missing in that relationship and it might actually be a false one, right? If you feel like the only thing that you have that's connecting you to somebody is a sign and synchronicity rather than an emotional connection, a physical connection, a spiritual connection, you have a very, very good chance they are not your true twin flame, right? Or even taking away the label that they are not the one for you, that they are not going to be your healthy partner, your dynamic, you're not, that's not going to be your other half, okay? There's other things that you need that you can't ignore within a connection. And that's, you will, of course, ignore that if you're only focusing on the 5D. Because again, you're just seeing things and from this perspective of, oh, they have a soul, I have a soul, this is the human experience, this is what the twin flame relationship must be like, and so I have to deal with that. But it's sort of hilarious because how many times have we seen people much older than us or even around our age that are in relationships that are sort of toxic and abusive, and the husband or the wife or boyfriend or girlfriend, whatever it is, just says something along the lines of, oh, that's how it is, right? That's how they are, right? I have family members that have said that about their husbands and stuff like that when they're clearly just abusive and narcissistic, right? But they're just like, oh, no, that's how so-and-so is. That's how they are. That's not how they're supposed to be. And by you staying in that relationship, you're actually harming yourself, right? And that's a form of not, it's a form of not loving yourself, inauthenticity, right? So again, focusing on that 5D connection, that's not going to be the answer to what's really going on in the reality of your situation, right? Again, I was so focused on what I thought meant that they were my twin that I didn't actually take the situation and look at all of the pieces of it. It seemed that I only had one little piece of a chessboard, you know what I mean? Like a little chess, whatever, I chessed like twice now, chess, like a chess set, right? It was like I just had like the little queen, right? But I was missing every other part of that set. But I was just focused on the queen, thinking, well, she's displays these characteristics and this, and I'm clearly, this twin flame relationships are supposed to be so difficult, and this is clearly fucking difficult, so I must be in one, right? But no, because again, you attract that into your life. Small side example would be anytime that you're afraid of something, especially on the spiritual journey, you'll often get those things pushed back up into your life. You'll see signs and synchronicities of it. Are they signs and synchronicities that what you're afraid of is actually true? No, it's not that at all. It's that it wants you to face those fears. It wants you to come to terms with it, right? So if you feel like you're in a false twin flame relationship and the only thing that you really feel connects you to this person is signs and synchronicity, again, seeing their names, certain numbers, certain patterns, whatever it may be, then take a look at it and really ask what it is that you feel when you see those things, right? Because it's going to keep coming back up until you deal with the real issues of the problem, right? There was times in this awakening journey where I feel like I unlocked past life things, past life fears. I was afraid of death for like a little bit, and I know people are genuinely and generally afraid of death a lot. Of course, it's very unknown, but there was a time where it was really on my mind a lot, and I would just see all the time. I would see things about kids my age dying of cancer, getting hit by cars. I was just attracting a lot of shit into my life about death. Somebody in the family died, or somebody would be talking about this kind of death, or I just know a bunch of people suddenly who lost somebody, and it was suddenly like all of this death was coming into my life, and I was like, Jesus, am I gonna die? And because I kept getting those signs and synchronicities, right? And you get so caught up in that moment and caught up in the spiritual and the 5D that you forget to look at the 3D and remain grounded and understand really the reality of the situation. And the reality of the situation is that no, they were just things to come up that I needed to deal with, right? And I have. No big deal now. Death is still, scary and whatever. And, I don't want to die per se, but when I do, whatever. I know that this is just a physical body, and it's the thing keeping me grounded in this earth, because without this body, where would I be? Not here, right? So death isn't that big of a deal to me anymore, right? Not to say that I'm going to go looking for death, but it is what it is to me now, and I've sort of overcome that obstacle, right? So I just wanted to make this quick video, if you can call it quick, that sort of help you out if you feel like at this time you might be so overly concerned with this relationship, but because it's feeling like it's driving you insane or it's making you really, really confused. And so again, I say to you guys, And I implore you that if you feel that the only thing that you have at this time to connect you with the significant other in your life is signs and synchronicities, if you're missing an emotional connection, if you're missing a spiritual connection, if your relationship is stagnant and never changing, if you feel like you are alone in the connection, if you feel like there's something off about it, that something just doesn't make any sense, you can't trust the other person, they've never committed, they never will. If you guys have, if there's too many fights and gossip and secrets, if again, nothing ever goes anywhere. There's always third-party energy, always a karmic, and it feels like they're never going to get out of their karmic relationship. If it feels like they only keep getting farther and farther away from you, if the only thing that is keeping you bound to them is signs and synchronicities, I implore you guys to take a look at this, consider my words carefully, because I do not want you guys to make the same mistake that I do, because twin flame relationships are not actually supposed to be that incredibly difficult. Okay? I used to think that it meant a lot of shit. It's not the case, okay? It's definitely difficult. It's not easy. No relationships are. It's definitely one based more on self-love and spirituality than anything else. But I have learned something from a false twin flame relationship, and that was that it was preparing me for a true one so that I could get all of my obsessive behaviors out of the way, my codependent attachments, my addictions, my reflections of a shadow self. And I thank that woman for what she's done to me. Not that you'd ever see this video, but it was a truly profound experience that led me towards a woman who actually is a representation of true love. Okay? Something that I felt from the moment that I saw her. And I remember when I saw my false twin, it was not an instant attraction. It was a gradual buildup and became more like an obsession, which is on me, not on her at all. But I just want to share this information with you guys because I went through a lot of shit. And I don't want you guys to go through a lot of shit because you feel that you have to suffer just because it's a twin flame relationship. Okay? Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. I really, really appreciate it. I hope that you guys can hear me. The audio was good, lighting was alright, and the filter didn't bother you too much. I feel like a 16-year-old girl with the filter, but whatever. We'll see how it goes. Alright guys, thanks so much. I will talk to you later. Alright, bye-bye.